Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have some big Retribution Paladin changes coming in the War Within. This is for the latest alpha build. I don't have alpha. The alpha is currently not up right this second anyways, so that wouldn't help for this second. But we're going to go through these talent changes, talk about a possible gameplay change, and one of these things is going to be at least somewhat controversial, I have a feeling. So we'll talk about all that. Let's go through these Retribution talent changes, and it starts with the big one here. New talent, Radiant Glory, replaces Avenging Wrath Crusade. That's still a talent. It replaces its spot on the tree. Wake of Ashes grants you Avenging Wrath or Crusade for 10 to 12 seconds. Your other damaging abilities have a chance to grant you Avenging Wrath Crusade for 5 to 6 seconds. So, basically, when you use Wake of Ashes, you get your wings. It's not going to work good with Crusade because you need to build up your Crusade, right? So 10 seconds of Crusade isn't really going to help that much. So it's really going to go better with the Avenging Wrath option. So basically, it's going to give you similar to higher uptime of wings, but it's going to be it's still somewhat predictable because when you use Wake of Ashes, but you also can have random 5 or 6 seconds as well thrown in there with other damaging abilities. So it's a little bit RNG and it's a little bit less scheduled, right? And that's going to cause some different fractures among the community. Wake of Ashes Avenging Wrath Crusade from this talent will function with Herald of the Sun, which we'll talk about that as well. That's one of the new hero talent things that is basically built around Wake of Ashes. Expurgation now rolls remaining damage when reapplied. That's very good. Templar Slash damage over time now rolls. That's very good. Boundless Judgment now additionally increases the chances of your judgment's chance to trigger High Lord Judgment by 50%. That's good. Templar Strike's damage buffed. Templar Strike's cooldown increased to kind of make up for that buff. Wake of Ashes now sends its cone attacks the way your camera is facing rather than where your character is facing. Now, for me, this is a good change, but I actually heard some arguments on why it's a bad change. For me, as someone who almost always moves, for certain bosses, I might strafe, but I almost always move with my mouse. Always. Like I said, for certain bosses, I might strafe, but not. It's a very, very rare thing where I strafe and stuff. So sometimes I actually am facing away in between auto attacks, essentially. So I've essentially trained myself to turn and jump between auto attacks. Shield of Vengeance is now a choice node with Aegis Protection after the second talent gate. So now we have to choose between Shield having an extra cooldown or having our defensive buffed, our Divine Protection buffed. Now, almost always, I can't really see a time when you would really just not choose to have two defensives, like two medium defensives over one uber defensive, right? On an already fairly tanky class. I think you're going to want to most of the time take the two medium defensives over the one uber, but we'll see. Aegis Protection now only increases effectiveness of Divine Protection by 20%, so that's making the Divine Protection super strong. Was 10% and also affected Shield of Vengeance as well. Avenging Wrath and Crusade talent is where Shield of Vengeance is currently. Wake of Ashes was moved to where Avenging Wrath Crusade was on the talent tree, so that was moved up. And then Seething Flames is moved up to where Wake of Ashes is in the talent tree. So we can look at the talents real quick to go over that part. The biggest thing we're going to talk about is this first thing, the new talent Radiant Glory. It is a nerf to our defensive overall. This is important to note. We are very tanky, but we are already not the most tanky. There are still rogues that are very tanky. Warlocks are very tanky. Other things are very tanky. We are having our tankiness diminished a little bit here, and you want to keep an eye on that. This change alone is no reason to worry. But if any other defensive changes come in, we're going back to glass status. So we got to make sure that doesn't happen. And be very, very loud with that feedback, especially. We do not want to go back to being made out of paper mache. So let's look at the talent tree here. And basically, some things are moved, right? So this is moved up to where this is. Wait. Let's make sure that's correct. Yeah. And then the new talent replaces this here. So Avenging Wrath or Crusade is way up here. This replaces that. And Where is Shield of Vengeance now? Shield of Vengeance is now a choice node with Aegis protection after the second gate. So it's down here somewhere. I don't know. It might just be where Aegis of protection is right now, but it's going to be somewhere around there. I'm assuming it's going to be where Aegis of protection is. So that's kind of where we see the talents moving. So we have this is now a talent choice, Shield or Aegis right here. Avenging Wrath Crusade is moved up to here. And where Avenging Wrath Crusade is, that new talent, Radiant Glory, is going to be. And again, that's going to be the one that your Wake of Ashes gives you wings, and your damaging abilities have a chance to give you wings. So in general, it's going to give you more uptime of wings, but it's going to be a little bit more RNG based. Now, they specifically mention how it's going to work with Herald of the Sun. And when you look at the Herald of the Sun talents, why is this so zoomed in? Let me see something here. Okay, there we go. When we look at the Herald of the Sun talents, you can kind of see why they would make that specific thing there. So a lot of Wake of Ashes being used here, right, in this. And, you know, one thing I mentioned is I do think now, I don't think it's going to be exactly, I don't think it's going to be always, but I think in these first iterations of the hero talents, some people disagree with me, but that's fine. I think Herald of the Sun is more set up to be kind of like an AoE talent setup. And I think that the other one, goodness, I can't even think of what it's called right now. The other, the other Templar, of course, the one that sounds really cool. Templar is more set up to be a single target one. That doesn't mean that's going to be the case. That's my opinion on those. That's just my opinion. And this kind of makes sense. So with Herald of the Sun, it looks like maybe they're trying to have this talent work really well with Herald of the Sun. And it might be something you don't pick with the other one. I think that this is kind of the way they think, I think that they think this way, right? And so I think they're kind of doing this thing. And because if you're in Mythic Plus, you want to have your wings rolling as much as possible, right? It's not always about damaging in a certain window, right before the boss phases or something like that, right? A lot of times you just want to be doing more damage more often in Mythic Plus. And I think that AoE centered thing kind of plays into this. And again, that's just a theory. I want to be very clear on this. I think that the new talent feeds into this AoE spec. Also, because it doesn't actually help with Crusade at all, it makes me think that, again, it's expecting you to play that 1 minute. Now, what we would want to see, if this was going to be the case, is something, if my theory was correct, right, you would want to basically see something where it would show that Crusade was maybe going to be viable for single target or something, right? Something that made Crusade really good for single target, and then you wouldn't maybe take this other talent because you'd want to take Crusade. Those could be the kind of choices that they could put in with this. But yeah, last thing I want to address really. So that's kind of like the overview of everything. The last thing I want to address on this is this could cause some problems, and this is alpha. This is the time to know problems. I don't have alpha, but I can give feedback on forums just like you can, just like anybody can. And what I don't want to see is this talent's a cool idea. It could be very powerful. It could be really. It could be very cool. Like it, the whole thing with the hero talent. Like when your wings is active, you're a radiant paladin. Like this whole thing could be quite cool. It could be powerful if tuned correctly, but I don't want to see them changing all of our talents around to fit the hero talents. If that makes sense, I don't want, our talent trees were already kind of in a decent spot. There's just a few tweaks probably that need made, especially on the ret side, and they'd pretty much be fine. And I don't want to see them changing everything up just to make the hero talents better. So I think that's kind of working backwards. I think, if anything, you would alter the hero talent slightly to match up with the current talent tree. So what I don't want to see here, and what we're going to want to keep an eye on, right, is that there's not circular problems caused by this. By that I mean, okay, we have this hero talent. We want it to feel more impactful. It's not feeling impactful by popping our wings every 1 minute. We want to have more uptime on the wings. How can we give more uptime on wings? We make it a little bit more RNG, so that way it's not a guarantee thing, because otherwise it's going to be too hard to tune around, etc. And so we'll do that. And so, but to do that, then we're gonna add this talent to the talent tree. And okay, well now this talent is a little bit too powerful, so now we're gonna nerf something else. Oh, but then that nerf caused this to happen, so we're gonna do this. And then it ends up just being this, like I said, a circular. It's kind of circular to me, where even if it's not circular, it's like one problem causes a million fixes when you could have just not did the one thing. And I think that's what you want to kind of stay away from, right? Where you just keep going. It's, to me, it's like you go in circles where you keep coming back to the same thing. Well, it's this talent that we put in to make the hero talent better, to make the hero talents better. We put this talent in and it just keeps becoming a problem. And that problem keeps causing us to have to change other things. And that's what I would worry about with this, because the way again, if my theory is correct, that would be the worry, right? Now, if they can do it correctly, again, on a more positive note, what you would want to see, if this is the road they're going down, you would want to see something change to make Crusade be the single target choice. When you're on a patchwork boss, you want to choose Crusade, and you don't want to choose this talent. You want to choose something else, and it's going to work really good with the other hero talents. It's going to work really good with Templar or whatever. So those are the kinds of things that I am going to be looking for personally. I'm not a doomer. There is, going to be some different sided opinions on this, right? I think I've tried to express both sides of them, both the negative and positive. But there's going to be people passionate about this on either side, because it will be a shake up to gameplay, right? When using this talent. And I think more than anything is people don't want to be forced to take it, probably. And so if it's always the best choice, that could cause some negativity as well. And so, that's kind of my feedback to Blizzard. My feedback to Blizzard will be that, tune it correctly, but, don't make it be a forced thing, and maybe offer a different option for different types of content or different types of players, where they don't have to play an RNG thing, and still be, successful or good or feel like they're powerful and everything like that. So, yeah, those are the big changes. And then lastly, my other feedback would be, you cannot just keep stripping away defensives. I was glad they didn't do this during Dragonflight. Okay, but what we're going to have now is we go from having 2 good to really good defensives to 2 medium defensives. So we went down a step, right? We go down another step, we're starting to get into some dangerous territory. Honestly, if we can keep our sanctified plates, that'll be really good. But we need to be monitoring that as well. That'll be my feedback as well, is be careful, because we used to be paper mache, and you might do that to us again for the sake of this Paladin fantasy or whatever. But Paladins are strong. We wear plate armor. We shouldn't be paper mache. So that's it for this one, guys. Exciting news. A lot of stuff's up in the air. Let me know how you feel about everything with these new changes. And as always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel, because it helps me out so much. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.